questions. So these were our goals and objectives, and these were some timelines, and this was for coming here to St. Francis. This was the document that I could find that kind of indicated to people that there was going to be a national test. So that's why we've included those documents for you. They're the actual documents that we had available at the time and created to share with folks about the move towards certification. So NCTRC today
and by the way, I mean, just so you know, until you scanned them and sent these to me to print out, I've never seen these documents. Most professionals will have never seen any of these documents. So it's kind of special that you're able to share this with us. I mean, these are the original documents that, you know, were involved in the formation of the certification and the reason for the existence of the profession today. We might not have a therapeutic recreation program here if certification hadn't gotten off the ground and developed, and you know, for the efforts of Dr. Carter and the folks that you worked with. Yeah.
Tremendous amount of effort, you know. What I said in this document was created to celebrate the 25th birthday of the organization, and they asked us to make a statement about the creation of it. And let me just read the last sentence here, because I think it's so typical and summarizes what Dr. Sklar is saying. And this is me, that I wrote. On occasion over the past 25 years, I have been asked if I am aware of the requirements to become a CTRS. Students request a textbook be autographed. I realize they, like others, are unaware that a few who dare to make a difference will impact many for some time to come. And that's very, very true. It's something that was very challenging to do, and I'm sure as we move toward licensure, there's going to be some more documents like this that people have to create that will just be in a file someplace until they're pulled out and shared. But it was certainly a very, very challenging time. And another aside, as a part of that, what's the date of our first meeting? What's the date of the first meeting at CTRC? Go down to Minneapolis. You see Minneapolis on that first page?
October 29th, 81.
Yeah. Well, guess what was happening that day? ATRA was having their first social in Minneapolis. I got on the elevator from meetings all day long that had been there 5 or 6 days because we've been reviewing applications. And there was Glenn Van Andel and Dave Park and a lot of folks in this little smoke-filled room. It was bigger at that time. Marcia, come on in. I said, y'all, I have been through the mill today. Because even after our first board meeting, NRPAs called me in with some more trustees. Are you sure you're going through with this? It's like, yeah, we're going through with it. And there's going to be more documents for you to sign. So that was simultaneously occurring, was the creation at this point of ATRA, as we had made that jump to create NCTRC. So what happened, y'all, is that there have been 4 job analysis. So our first one wasn't an official job analysis when we got all those 6 boxes of paper and all that. But since then, there have been 4 job analysis, and the last one just came out last Friday. And they did present at the national organization on it, and I understand that they're sending us all, hard copies of this. So these, and I've got all 4 of them in here, kind of collected them. They have shown, y'all, over the first analysis in 87. See, we had to have that analysis before we could have the test. From 87 until last Friday, there's a lot of similarity in the competencies that are required minimally for entry-level professionals. What has happened is that there's been an increase in the focus on practice. But ironically, the number one, this is so pertinent for you all. The number one knowledge competency on the newest analysis is professionalism. So your professional issues class is the basis for that. That's still rated by practitioners as the most important thing, is professionalism. So we have changed exams. We've gone from paper and pencil exams to electronic exams. And can I tell one more funny story? This is funny. Back when they created the first exam, people were panicking, y'all. People who were practicing didn't have textbooks. They only had the 3 or 4 that I had. So a lot of study guides were created. Now you do have official study guides. Well, they sent one to me, and I'm at the laundromat in Iowa, because I was working in Iowa at the time. I'm reading this study guide. Dadgummit, I couldn't answer these questions. Well, then what got me was that they said the question came from the first edition of my textbook. I thought, oh, now we are really in deep doo-doo, because I got to go down and take this test day after tomorrow down in Des Moines. So I called my friend Angie Anderson. I said, Angie, I can't answer my own questions. We've got to study before this test tomorrow. And Angie was probably the oldest practitioner at the time taking the test. And she said, okay, come on down. So I grabbed the wet laundry out of the dryer, threw it in the basket, didn't even go back home, and went down to Des Moines. And she said, okay, get a good night's sleep and we'll practice tomorrow, study tomorrow. We'll go to the library where we're going to take the test at noon. We went to the library and there were all these little CTRSs sitting there studying. And I said, well, what are you studying for? And they said, that CTRS exam. And I said, well, what are you studying? Oh, abnormal psychology and human growth and development, anatomy and physiology. I said, Yar? Oh, no, this is getting worse by the minute. I said, Angie, let's get out of this library. It has been literally from the 60s to the 90s that I've even seen an anatomy book, other than what I've written in the textbook. So that's the beginning of taking the test. They file us into the room, and we're standing in this hallway. And at that time, and the same is true today, y'all, you can take a Kleenex and your car keys, and that's about it, into the testing booth. At that time, we were all in a large room. So they were filing us in. And some students from the University of Iowa, I was teaching in Northern Iowa, were behind us, and one student says, I sure hope Gunn and Peterson and Carter Van Amel Rock have to take this test. I had to read their book. And my student standing next to me said, would that be you? I said, shh. That would be, but we aren't telling anybody here. And so we file in, and as I'm filing out of the test, there stand my students. How'd you do, Dr. C? Why did it take you so doggone long? And I said, well, I haven't taken a paper and pencil test in about 30 years. And then they said, well, did you get the answer to this question? And of course I said, well, sure, it was an accessibility question. I said, yeah. They said, well, yeah, you taught us 1 and 12. And I said, yeah, that's the answer. And they said, oh, no, it wasn't. It was a mathematical question. So by that time, I really thought I'd flunked the first test. And I was more on pins and needles because it took about 3 months for us to get the results of the test at that time. But I was a good example of everybody else that had been out in the field. And I told Bob Riley and Peg Conley that at least they should give me card number 1. And they said, oh, no, you're just like everybody else. I said, I don't think I want everybody else to know we did all this. So we really have come an awful long way with improving the exam. And now, as you know, we've moved to specialties, which is moving back toward recognition of more than entry-level criteria, because we just have to keep reminding ourselves that the entry-level criteria is the basic exam. And that's true for any profession, that you have the basic and then you move towards specialty exams, and NRPA is certainly moving that way with their material. And I would encourage all of you to do that, yeah.
Is there education requirements for the specialty certifications, or is it just you want to test for it?
There's education requirements and there's practice requirements,
Okay.
but it's based on practice.
Okay.
So they want you to have, is it 5 years?
I think so, yeah.
5 years of practice in those generic areas. And see, that's the challenge for folks that are still practicing that are older. They have a broad base.
Yeah.
So they have 2 or 3 areas, so they don't have just 5 years
Yeah.
in one particular area. I know that when I looked at it, I was like, that's my challenge. I work, with phys diz and
that, I feel like that could be hard for students too, though, because it'd be hard. So say you're trying to get into one of those fields, but you need the specialty certification, but you wouldn't be able to get the experience that you need to test for it. So like so say you wanted to go into developmental disabilities and you wanted to get that certification for it, but you weren't able to get into the field without having the certification for it.
probably, well, your specialty certification comes after you've gotten your CTRS.
Okay.
So probably folks, hopefully, and probably would employ you with that CTRS.
Okay.
With your discussion with them, yes, I will, once I get the experience required,
Yeah.
apply for that specialty certification. Because you can start taking your continuing professional development experiences as you're getting that 5 years of experience.
Okay.
And by the time you reach that 5 years of experience, then you'll be able to have that.
And it becomes, it's more of a stamp of acknowledgement of your experience and your knowledge, as opposed to a credential that would then lead to a job,
Okay.
I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I think it may be a little challenging to sell to the profession as well. I don't know if you've experienced that. I haven't been entirely sold on the specialty certification. I know there are practitioners that have sought it and achieved it. I don't see the widespread appeal for it to attract practitioners to apply.
Mhm.
Particularly if it doesn't lead to more money or rank in a position or something like that.
Yeah. I think, I agree 100%. I think the one area, they've only gotten like, is it 70 or 700 people? It's real low. It's
Okay.
70, isn't it?
I don't recall.
It's
Yeah.
very, very low.
Yeah.
But the one area that does make some sense would be in geriatrics, where
Mhm.
the state regulations have expectations that we go back to. But it is a tough sell.
Yeah, I mean, I think like as a student, I would like it if you could take like extra coursework and get that certain test for it without not without any sort of experience, but just because it allows you to kind of like single yourself out and add like certifications onto yourself. But yeah.
It's definitely a practice-based, and they haven't developed a test yet for it, but just a professional development. And it'll evolve.
Yeah.
And you can see historically, back in the 50s, they had masters and they had specialty ideas there. So it's an idea that probably will come around, and it's slowly growing. So to jump in the last 3 or 4 minutes to a couple of things very quickly, licensure is back on the scene, as you all know. And it has been around an awful long time. And we looked at it when we were forming NCTRC, and all the best advice in the world, really at the time, was you need to establish a test and a knowledge base that is germane to your profession, because that will drive licensure even at the state level. So we studied licensure back in the 70s and 80s quite a bit, as we studied continuing education. So right now, you probably are all familiar with the fact that we have 4 states with licensure. And NCTRC is kind of looking back now at licensure. They've developed a position paper. They've had a joint forum. NCTRC and NADRA had a joint forum in 2012, and there's representatives from each state that are participating now, and some phone calls. In our state formed a task force of members to continue to work on it. And now ATRA and NCTRC have formed a joint licensure task force to work on licensure. And they're using their position paper to justify why the CTR's credential should be the basis for licensure. But it is definitely a state initiative, and Georgia was a state that had it, but they had it sunsetted because of the loss of person power to advocate for it. So we're slowly moving in that direction, and we've been advised at our state level here in Illinois that because of the financial circumstances in Illinois and many other states, that it's not the thing to put at the top of somebody's plate, because people are assuming it does take quite a bit of money. And there is a general trend across the country to de-license people, like OTs, PTs, doctors, a whole 9 yards, because it does take money. And we're sharing with folks that our test is already developed, our criteria is already developed, and the professionals who would be active at the state level wouldn't cost you any more money. Because when you have licensure at the state level, you have to have regulatory boards sit down Springfield. And that's professionals regulating it. But it's also politicians. And that's why it's so important for the profession to first define what it is. Because once you define that, then if at licensure levels, politicians who don't know you, or PTs or OTs who don't know you, get involved, and they can, because they're on the professional regulatory boards at the state level, you can say to them, look, this is who we are. This is who we are. So it's going to take a little bit of time for us to move toward licensure. And then to close, you did read a couple articles on accreditation. And I guess the 2 or 3 important things. I often hear somebody saying, I'm accredited. And it's like, no. You are certified or licensed. A program is accredited. But secondly, is the piece that what a program goes through to become accredited in education is just like what you'll experience when the Department of Health comes in, or when CARF or the Joint Commission comes in. It's the same thing. It's the same thing as a camp accreditation. The principle is you're trying to prove the quality of the program, and that the program quality is directly related to the competencies you and I have as professionals. So in all accreditation processes, they're all voluntary processes, and they are time limited like our certification. You're going to have a peer review process that identifies that St. Francis has opportunities for you all to gain the competencies you need to become a professional in the field. And just the last little slide here, that's where we're at with accreditation. Now, the 2 articles that you read summarize, again, the growth of going from not necessarily definitive courses at universities to very definitive courses. And that's been the maturing process with both. And now we have, it was 83 that you had your first official accreditation. Dr. Jerry O'Morrow and I were your first 2 visitors here. And one little person ran into the same cafeteria that you guys had, and she had a napkin. And Dr. O'Morrow wrote like 50 years worth of textbooks, literally. She had a napkin. Sir, would you sign this napkin? And he was so sweet. He signed the napkin, and Jerry was a very honestly Catholic person. He wanted to be here. He said, I want to go to a Catholic university. And I always thought that Jerry went to Notre Dame to school. He never stepped foot on the Notre Dame campus, but he drove all over the country to go to every one of their ball games. That's how much of a Catholic the man was. So he was very thrilled to be here, and very honored to to be part of the accreditation, because you were amongst the first private small colleges in the United States to hold your accreditation. So that's what's so significant too about Meredith and the folks coming to visit you in a month and a half.
Yeah, we just set the date as of yesterday, March 18th, they're coming.
So
Yeah.
that's what's really significant. There are fewer programs accredited by CART because that's newer. And there are more programs accredited by COPART because that's older. But that is the story of credentialing. And just to summarize a couple things. One is thanks very much for listening, and some of us get very passionate about it. And two, hopefully you'll become a part of some of the activities that build the credentialing pieces, because they're very, very significant for your credibility as a professional. So hopefully you get more and more of these things and you wear them with pride. I wore these today so I could share them with you, but it's very, very important to be visible, and credentialing does give us that visibility, and it certainly gives us the respect. I've had many OTs and many PTs. You have to take a test. I go, yeah, we got to take a test. Oh my gosh, that must mean that you're really important. And I said, yeah, yes, we are. So what you do does make a difference. And good luck. Well, thanks for being a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, this is fun.
I want to say, first of all, if there are some things that Dr. Carter talked about today that you're like, maybe we've talked about that, or we haven't quite gone over that yet, like licensure and that sort of thing. Those are topics for this course that we will cover in more depth this semester. So don't worry if some of it was unfamiliar to you. I want to say that this has been very educational for me to hear this story, and I really appreciate you sharing. I mean, as you said, it's the story of credentialing of our profession, and that's I'm thinking to myself. I mean, I know some of this has been documented in different books and that sort of thing, and I've got a little bit documented here on video, although not very professional quality. But I'm thinking, wow, this is really a story that we all need to hear, and this is the first time I've actually got to hear it in this fashion. This makes a great conference presentation as a potential conference presentation too. Yeah.
It'd be fun to have the students be involved as well. When we do go back and we found that information that we were, and I remember, we were marketing the students. They're our future. So it'd be really fun to have an opportunity to tell the story. It's never been told. Just the pieces at the time to justify moving ahead. But no, it's done.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Did you have a question?
I actually had a question.